Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to JDB Selects. Sorry for no video last week, had a bit of personal stuff going on, so couldn't get around to making my video. But we're back again this week for round 7. But man, how good was round 6? 2 golden points, 1 draw, 1 field goal winner, some big upsets, the Battle of Brisbane. I mean, footy is in such a good place right now. I hope you are enjoying it as much as I am. But before we get stuck into my tips and predictions for round 7, let's as always look back at how we did last week. So last week we tipped 6 out of 8 games. My tips were shared to my Discord members ahead of the first game on Thursday. But we missed out on the Knights, which I think is a bit unlucky, because I think if KP was fit and healthy for that first 40, they'd probably get past the Roosters. And then obviously the Cowboys' poor run of form in Parramatta continued, going down to the Eels 27 points to 20. So never complain about 6 out of 8, but as always we are striving for 8 out of 8 week in and week out. And speaking of the Discord, if you do want to become a part of the community and join the conversation, please do hit that Discord link button in the video description. It is free to join the Discord, however there are paid membership options available. You can become a YouTube member to get exclusive access to data tools like the one shown on screen, member shoutouts like my boys Matt and Roscoe holding it down, as well as just a general community that loves punting, rugby league and sports. So regardless of if you want to become a channel member or not, please join the Discord. It is 100% free. We drop lots of official picks, predictions, and tips in there, and it's been so much fun over the last couple of weeks. So big shout out to everyone in the Discord. And if you don't know by now, we are running a subscribers tipping comp as per usual. All the details to join are in the video description. We've got 3 awesome prizes this year, as you can see on screen: grand final tickets, a jersey, and an NRL voucher. So just follow the join instructions, follow us on social media, join the Discord, etc., and you are in the draw to win. And speaking of the tipping comp, we have a new ladder for the first time, I believe, in the history of JDB Selects. Manawatu Turbo, my man, my Kiwi boy, on top with 72 points, 4 points clear of the next closest. So congrats to you, Manawatu Turbo. I think you got a perfect round last week, which is very impressive. Congrats to you, Manawatu Turbo. Congrats to everyone else in that top 20. And good luck to everyone with their tips and predictions this week. Let's get stuck into mine. Alright, round 7 gets underway on Thursday night with the 9th placed Sydney Roosters taking on the 2nd placed Melbourne Storm at Allianz Stadium. Starting first with Sydney, the Roosters' dominance over the Knights continued, squeaking out a 2-point win, 22 points to 20 to kick off round 6. The Chooks were strong through the middle of the park, spearheaded by Collins and JWH, which allowed Brandon Smith, Luke Keary and Joey Manu to cause havoc around the ruck. And speaking of Manu, oh my word, it is friggin' criminal that he is not a starting fullback and we are going to lose him at the end of the season. He was in everything for the Chooks, running for a mind-boggling 370 metres with 1 try assist and 11 tackle breaks. The back 5 for the Roosters were also great, with Manu, Tupou and Suali'i all taking the hard carries and making huge metres out of their own end. It certainly wasn't a clinical performance by any stretch, but it was certainly a crucial win with some key players missing following a disappointing result the week prior. And in terms of teams list for the Roosters, both Tedesco and Sam Walker should be available for selection this week. However, no doubt will be monitored. Sicily Tupanua will however be unavailable this week due to the HIA protocols, and Dom Young still has 1 more week to serve on his suspension, while Sandon Smith is also nearing his return from injury. And as for Melbourne, the Storm once again pulled a rabbit out of the hat, securing their 3rd buzzer-beating win of the season, this time against the Bulldogs, 16 points to 14. Melbourne had the better of it in the first half, but only found themselves up 10-0 at the break. Xavier Coates produced yet another highlight reel play, putting through a miracle kick to send Remus Smith across the line, but outside of that, their attack never really found their flow. They were ambushed down their right edge after the break, conceding 3 tries in 14 minutes to find themselves trailing. But once again, the Storm managed to wrestle back a bit of momentum and field position late, and Munster sent Sean Bloor crashing over in the 75th minute to jag yet another unlikely victory. Alright, and looking at the teams list for the Storm this week, Ryan Pappenhausen was put on report for a hip drop, but is cleared to play this week, only receiving a $750 fine. Prop Tui Kamikamika suffered a calf injury in the 4th minute and was unable to return, so will be in doubt this week, which will likely mean that Joe Chan is the replacement. Alright, looking at the 2 sides head-to-head, the Storm have won 8 of the past 9, that includes 3 straight. The Storm have also won their last 3 games in Sydney. And a look at the live odds shows that the bookies have no idea who's going to take this one out. They have both teams at $1.92. The line is currently only 1.5 points in favour of the Storm, and the over and under is 39.5 points. Ooh, as always, the Thursday game, I say it every week, the Thursday game is make or break and tends to be the hardest game of the round. But I am going to take the Roosters here, 1-12. I think their forward pack is stronger than the Storms. The Storms didn't look flash against a pretty weak Dogs side last week. And if Tedesco and Walker and etc. are back, I do think the Roosters will be relatively full strength, as are the Storm, I guess. But the Storm, although they are 4-1 this season, or 4-0, whatever it is, they haven't really been convincing, right? They've jagged a few wins late. So I do think the Roosters have shown a little bit more. So at this stage, Chooks, 1-12. Alright, moving now to the first of two games on Friday, starting first with the 13th placed St. George Illawarra Dragons taking on my 7th placed NZ Warriors at WIN Stadium. Starting first with the Dragons, they bounced back with a tough fought 24-12 point victory over the West Tigers. Both sides were plagued by errors and ill-discipline, with the Dragons making 13 errors, but they were able to capitalise on their opportunities and convert them into points. Zach Lomax was once again the best on ground for St. George, scoring the opening try, setting up another, and somehow taking nearly every high ball no matter the circumstance. They can probably count themselves lucky that they were playing the Tigers, because if they had dished that up against probably any other side in the competition, bar the Titans, they'd probably get pumped by 20. And as for the Warriors also dished up their worst performance of the year, but were extremely tenacious to fight back from 16-0 down, eventually splitting the 2 points with the Sea Eagles in a 22-all golden point draw. The Warriors were outmuscled in the middle and struggled to gain field position, and when they did, they coughed up possession. They hardly looked likely in the first half outside of the final 5 minutes, with Jazz Tavanga and Dalen Watene-Zelezniak giving them some momentum going into the sheds. It was a similar story in the second half, but a vintage solo try from SJ and a 79th minute try to Dalen in the corner gave the Warriors hope. In the dying stages, Josh Elliott was penalised for making contact with Johnson's legs during a field goal attempt, which ultimately gave the Warriors a penalty right in front and forced the draw. Now, I certainly do sympathise with Manly fans, as I do believe it was a soft penalty, but certainly by the letter of the law, it was the right call. Again, probably the worst performance of the year for the Warriors, but there were still plenty of things to like, namely Mitch Barnett, and also lots of things to work on for Webby this week. In terms of teams list for the Wars, Jazz Tavanga left the field with a hamstring injury and will be out of action. That's the second hamstring injury to a middle forward in just as many weeks. Dylan Walker, though, is expected to make his return from an ankle injury this week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Warriors have won 7 of the last 10 games against the Dragons. However, the Dragons have won 10 of the last 12 games played at WIN Stadium, although the Warriors have won the last 2. The bookies like the Warriors in this one. They are currently $1.45 favourites, with the Dragons coming back at $2.75. The line is currently quite short at 6.5 points, and the over and under is currently 43.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me, guys. As always, bias Warriors fan right here, but Warriors 13 plus. I think that negative 6.5 points line is bloody juicy. I'll be jumping on that very quick. But I do think the Warriors can win and win well. The Dragons, they have shown moments of brilliance this year, but too many lapses in defense. So I think the Warriors can exploit them. I think last time they played, Dalen got a 3 or 4 tries. So load up on Dalen 2 plus, 3 plus, Warriors negative 6. Free money. Alright, and the final game on Friday has the 11th place Parramatta Eels taking on the 9th place Dolphins at TIO Stadium in Darwin. Starting first with the Eels, they managed to pull off a patchy upset win over the North Queensland Cowboys, 27 points to 20. The Eels have struggled since losing Mitchell Moses and needed to find something quickly, or else their season could have been over before it even started. Dejan Arce was recalled into the halves and complemented Dylan Brown well, allowing Brown more time to play his natural game. Parramatta were also strong through the middle and really took it to the North Queensland Cowboys forwards. It was a really gutsy performance from the Eels and will no doubt give them some confidence going forward for the rest of their time without Moses. And as for the teams list for Parramatta, Bailey Simonson left the field during the game against the Cowboys, but did return, I believe, with an ankle injury, so he may be in doubt this week. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Brad Arthur does make some changes to that back line. And as for the Dolphins, the Finns once again came up short in the NRL's latest rivalry, losing to the Brisbane Broncos 28 points to 14. It was a grueling game with both sides enjoying long periods on attack, and in turn were forced to make a lot of tackles, which led to a messy contest with a combined 33 errors. The turning point for me was in the 25th minute when the Dolphins marquee signing Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow left the field with a hamstring injury and wouldn't return. His absence in the second half mixed with the fatigue from the first 40 meant the Dolphins couldn't match the speed of the Broncos, conceding 22 points in the first 20 minutes after the break, and despite a late surge, never really threatened on attack. So in terms of teams list for the Dolphins, Hamiso we just touched on, but they also did lose Cody Nikarima to a calf injury, which could bring Anthony Milford back into the halves. They're also not expecting Flegler, Kafusi or Farnworth to be available for selection this week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, this will be the second time these two sides have met, with the Eels winning the only meeting 48 points to 20 last year on the Sunshine Coast. The bookies currently like the Eels at $1.54, with the Dolphins bouncing back at $2.50. The line is currently 4.5 points, and the over and under is 44.5 points. Pretty good game. I think this will be a pretty good game. I'm going to take the Eels though, 1-12. I think no Hammer, no Dolphins, especially when you add in the fact Flegel, Kaufusi, Farnworth, and Nikarima are all expected to be missing. Those are some of their best and key players. And even though the Eels don't have Moses, they did look good last week and should certainly have a bit of confidence from that. So Eels for me, 1-12. All right, moving now to the first of 3 games on Saturday, starting first with the 8th placed Penrith Panthers taking on the 12th placed West Tigers at Carrington Park. Starting first with the Panthers, they enjoyed the bye last week. However, I doubt they enjoyed it too much, as the week prior they were pumped by the Sea Eagles 32 points to 18. Penrith were far from their best, and although they were on the wrong end of a highly contentious knock-on call, it was their own ill discipline that cost them, conceding 11 penalties and making an uncharacteristic 13 errors. Dylan Edwards was immense once again, clocking up nearly 300 run meters and scoring 2 of their 3 tries. A really disappointing showing from the Panthers, who had been so good the week prior, but I have no doubt that they'll bounce back pretty quickly and want to show something this week. And in terms of teams list for the Panthers, Nathan Cleary is listed to come back this week, but there are rumors that he has re-agitated that hamstring and may be out a little bit longer. Jerome Luai is also potentially in doubt with a knee injury, and Scott Sorensen is also expected to be named this week. And as for the Tigers, after a few impressive performances, the Tigers have slipped back into their old ways, going down to the Dragons 24 points to 12. I don't really have too much to say about the Tigers' performance. I think they played your classic Tigers style. They tried their hearts out. They threw the ball around a bit, but ultimately their own errors and ill discipline caught up with them, and they didn't have any of the direction they needed on attack. Bud Sullivan, I don't think, is their answer in the halves, and obviously Lockie Galvin is expected back this week, which should be a massive inclusion for the Tigers because they look bloody good with him in it. But yeah, they desperately need to find a way to unlock their attack because some of their outside backs are immense. You know, you look at like the likes of Faitapi, Olum, Tupou, Buller. I mean, they have great players, right? They have amazing players. Coruscant, Clemmer, Papali'i, Uta Ikamanu. Like, they have a roster. One thing they don't have is a halves pairing that can get the best out of those players. So I think Galvin coming back this week will be great, but geez. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, who could forget that the Tigers claimed an unlikely 12 to 8 point victory at the exact same ground last year, in horrible conditions albeit. But in saying that though, the Panthers have won 7 of the last 10 games. The live odds currently have the Panthers at $1.20 favourites, with the Tigers coming back at $4.20. The line is currently 13.5 points, and the over and under is 41.5 points. Pretty straightforward one for me, I think, given the recent performances. The Panthers are going to come out swinging, either with or with Nathan Cleary, either with or without Nathan Cleary, so Panthers 13+. Alright, moving now to the second game on Saturday, we have the 16th placed Gold Coast Titans taking on the 8th placed Manly Sea Eagles at Cbus Super Stadium. Alright, starting first with the Gold Coast almost recorded their first win of the season, staging an extremely impressive late comeback against the Titans, only to go down in Golden Point 21 points to 20. The Titans were completely outplayed for 70 minutes of that match, seeing just 42% of possession and being on the wrong side of nearly every key stat. Despite the dominance from the Raiders, the Titans' tenacity to hang into that game and then capitalise on their opportunities in the last 10 minutes should be applauded. Their outside backs put in a massive shift, with Kelly, Shields, Fafita and Brimson all racking up over 150 run meters, but they really did just lack punch through the middle. That's their biggest weakness right now, and I did like the new halves combination too. I thought Brimson and Foran looked pretty good together. but they did, they just lacked that punch through the middle. In terms of teams list for the Titans, Jaden Campbell obviously left the field with a knee injury and it will probably be in doubt this week. Keenan Palacia is expected to be available for selection this week. Alright, and as for the Sea Eagles, they were unlucky not to return to Australia with the 2 points, instead splitting them with the Warriors after playing to a 22-all draw after 90 minutes. Manly had the Warriors number through the middle, with DCE and Turbo benefiting from their platform and combining for the opening 2 tries. A small lapse in concentration before halftime gave their opponents some momentum, but to their credit though, the Sea Eagles did a great job at wrestling that back before again switching off late in the later stages, eventually conceding a soft penalty to allow the Warriors to draw level. Despite the underwhelming ending, the Sea Eagles have proved once again that they are the real deal in 2024. And in terms of teams list for Manly, a lot of changes are expected this week, with Garrick, Saab, Brown and Lodge all expected to be available for selection. Josh Aloiai is facing a 1-game ban for making contact with SJ's legs during that field goal attempt, and hooker Lachlan Croker was removed from the field with an HIA. However, they believe he has sustained a shoulder injury and will obviously be monitored. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Titans have a decent record against the Sea Eagles, winning 6 of the last 10. However, Manly have liked playing at Seabus. They've won 5 of their 7 games there. The bookies currently have the Titans at $3.75, with Manly coming back at $1.28. The line is currently 11.5 points, and the over and under is 46.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me, although I do think sprinkling some on the Titans plus 11.5 would be good. Obviously, Des up against his former club, but I am going to take the Sea Eagles by 13+. Alright, and the final game on Super Saturday should be a cracker. We have the 10th placed Brisbane Broncos hosting the 3rd placed Canberra Raiders at Suncorp Stadium. The Broncos retain their unbeaten streak against the Dolphins in the Battle of Brisbane, pulling away late 28 points to 14. As is often the case with most of these derbies, it was a physical, intense contest in the opening 40 minutes, with the Broncos forced to defend their line for long periods of time. The Broncos, however, were able to manage that fatigue better in the second 40, running in 22 points in 20 minutes to pull away from their crosstown rivals. Walsh was great on return and linked perfectly with Mam, and his speed is just second to none. He's such a dangerous ball runner, and it's things you love to see in rugby league. It's Reece Walsh in space. And although the Broncos did get the 2 points, they certainly have lots of things to work on. I think there was 33 combined errors in that game, which is unacceptable at any level, really. So certainly things to improve on, but they are tracking in the right direction. And in terms of teams list for the Broncos, Adam Reynolds and Brendan Piakura are still a week or 2 away. Payne Haas may also be named this week, or else he'll be back next week. Dean Mariner is also looking at sort of 2 to 3 more weeks on the sideline. And as for the Raiders almost coughed up another lead, this time at home to the Gold Coast Titans, hanging on and winning in Golden Point thanks to a Jamal Fogarty field goal, 21 points to 20. The Raiders dominated the Titans in terms of field position and territory, but really struggled to break through their line. Fogarty was the standout for me. His kicking game was on point for the entire 80+ minutes, as well as Ethan Strange, who obviously made that break down the left touchline, which gave the Raiders a snap at winning the game, which they obviously took. I haven't actually had a chance to watch the press conference yet, but I imagine Ricky Stewart would have been fuming at the performance. It was eerily similar to their game against the Sharks, where they ended up coughing up a 16-0 lead. So the Canberra Raiders, are certainly living up to their nickname. And in terms of teams list, Zach Hosking was removed from the field with what is believed to be a shoulder dislocation, so is in doubt this week. Albert Hopewati should be back in action after suffering those burns. Corey Horsburgh still a few weeks away, as is Elliot Whitehead, and Jordan Rapana is also not expected back until around round 11. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Broncos have a great record against the Raiders at Suncorp. They've won 12 of the last 15 games there. However, the Raiders, they were victorious in their last outing at the venue, 20 points to 14. The Broncos are currently $1.45 favourites, with the Raiders coming back at $2.75. The line is currently 6.5 points, and the over and under is 44.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me. Broncos, 13+. Alright, moving now to the first of 2 Sunday fixtures. Starting first with the 15th placed Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, taking on the 14th placed Newcastle Knights at Accor Stadium. Right, starting first with the Doggies, they were on the receiving end of yet another late Melbourne Storm comeback, getting pipped at the post 16 points to 14. Canterbury's handling was awful in the first half, completing at just 63%, but somehow found themselves in the contest thanks to their significantly improved goal line defence. It was a different story after the break though, with the Dogs retaining possession and allowing their lethal left edge of Crichton kick out and Josh Adokar loose, with the latter bagging a hat-trick in 14 minutes against his former club. Unfortunately, Serrato's men allowed the Storm down their own end and they joined both the Warriors and Broncos in conceding a late heartbreaking try. Although they lost, there's plenty to like about the Dogs. I thought their back five were great and I really rate Tracy at fullback, something that I've obviously been calling for since the season began. That's, to me, probably their best back five, and I thought they showed that was the case on the weekend. I also thought their forward pack did really well, and it did a massive job in the middle there, considering how many of their first choice players were sidelined or were playing out of position. Full credit to the Dogs, they are improving each and every week. And in terms of teams list for the Dogs, who really knows? They've got a lot of players out with injury with no real clear timelines on return. You've got the likes of Max King, Kurt Mann, Blake Taff, Harrison Edwards and Blake Wilson, all TBC. Kurt Moran will return from suspension this week, and Jacob Preston is still a few weeks away as he recovers from that fractured jaw. And as for Newcastle, the Knights were unable to break their duck at home on Thursday night, narrowly losing to the Roosters 22 points to 20. Newcastle looked lively early, getting on the board first through Jackson Hastings for the second week running. That all changed though when Kalen Ponga suffered a hip injury in the 17th minute, which rendered the star fullback useless for the remainder of the half, and the Roosters capitalised. Ponga did return though in the second 40 and played close to his best, but it was too little too late for the Knights, who were torn apart around the ruck. Despite the loss, the Knights' handling was improved, and their left edge combination of Hastings, Best, Ponga and Kai Pearce-Paul does seem to be improving. In terms of teams list for the Newcastle Knights, obviously Ponga suffered that hip injury but did play through, so I imagine he'll play again this week. Tyson Frizzell is out with a hamstring injury and may be available this week. And looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Knights have won 6 of the last 10, and both games last season by huge margins, 66 points to 0 and 42 points to 6. The live odds currently have the Dogs at $2.25 underdogs, with the Knights coming back at $1.65. The line is currently 2.5 points, and the over and under is 41.5 points. Geez, this is going to be a really very, very interesting game. Looking at both of those side stats, they're pretty much identical in terms of position on the ladder, points scored, points conceded. I mean, it's a splitting image really. But I am going to take the Dogs at home. I really liked the effort from the Dogs last week. The Knights certainly lacked that in stages against the Roosters. I do think that they should stick with the back five combo they had last week with Tracy at the back and push some of their strike players out on the edge. But that's just me. So yeah, I'm going to take the Dogs. 1-12. Alright, and the final game of round 7 is a top of the table clash with the 4th placed Cronulla Sharks taking on the 4th placed North Queensland Cowboys at PointsBet Stadium. Alright, starting first with the Sharks, they ended a 7-game losing streak to the Bunnies at Accor Stadium, with winger Ronaldo Mulitalo's stellar display leading the team to a 34-22 point victory. The Rabbitohs were plagued with injuries, so amidst the constant shuffling of their backline, Mulitalo took advantage, notching up 2 tries and setting up one for Teague Wilton, and also pulled off a crucial try-saving tackle as Cronulla held off a courageous Southside who played the entire second half with just 14 men. It was a decent performance from the Sharks, up against a side that had nothing to lose and everything to gain, so it's hard to read too much into it. Obviously, plenty of things the Sharks can improve on, but full credit to them for hanging on, albeit against a depleted Souths outfit. And as for the Cowboys are yet to record a win at Parramatta since 2015, losing to the Eels 27 points to 20. The Cowboys started strong with Kyle Fout, the club's now leading top try scorer, nearly adding another try in just 3 minutes, only for it to be called off due to an obstruction by Jeremiah Nanai. However, Nanai quickly made amends, rising above the Parramatta defence to catch a crossfield kick and score the following set. Outside of a few glimpses of brilliance, the Cowboys were bang awful. They were beaten up through the middle by Parramatta's forward pack and really struggled to get around the outside of what was essentially a pretty weak Eels backline. Certainly, the Cowboys are certainly that side that will produce rocks and diamonds. I feel like I've said that before, but I'll say it again. Some weeks they are so much fun to watch, and other weeks they are just mind-numbingly awful. And that was unfortunately one of those performances again on the weekend. Looking at the teams list for the Cowboys, Helam Lukey isn't expected back for another couple of weeks, and there are no other expected changes to the Cowboys lineup this week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Sharks have a great record over the Cowboys. They've won 10 of the last 11 games. Fairly straightforward one for me. I think the Sharks win well and win at home, so I'm going to take the Sharks 1-12. Cowboys obviously have plenty of points in them, but are a bit like a revolving door on defense at times, and the Sharks obviously do have that good record at home, so for me, Sharks 1-12. Bang, just like that, we are done for another week. Thank you as always for watching. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, join the Discord, and drop your tips and predictions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.